Welcome to a new emergent Bihar, where women from ultra-poor households are increasingly making their presence felt in the economic and social sphere. The ground for this transformation is being laid by the Satat Jeevikoparjan Yojana, SJY. Launched in 2018 by the government of Bihar, it is designed to empower ultra-poor households through diversification of livelihoods, capacity building, and improved access to finance. Behind the success of SJY are some unique innovations that are not only transforming the development landscape of Bihar, but setting an example before the world. A key strategy of Satat Jeevikoparjan Yojana is to utilize the existing local community institutions of Jeevika. Village organizations or VOs and cluster-level federations CLF are central to the implementation of the entire process. Using their local knowledge, the VOs identify the ultra-poor families in every village through participatory rural appraisal mapping. Community members verify this through home visits. The various funds are also channeled through the village organizations. From procurement to distribution, the VO also takes care of the asset transfers. The community organizations, working in close cooperation with the project staff, also play an active role in linking the ultra-poor households to relevant government social welfare schemes and financial institutions. In fact, the community remains invested in the poor households throughout the graduation process and beyond. Another game-changing innovation is the livelihood cluster. Ultra-poor families engaged in the same profession and located in the same geography are networked together to form livelihood clusters. The objective: develop their business and maximize their income. Today, livelihood clusters are coming up all over Bihar. There are dairy clusters, goat clusters, bangle clusters, broom clusters, handicraft clusters, and more. Satat Jeevikoparjan Yojana provides every cluster with strong backward and forward linkages. The participants are given continuous hand-holding support, business inputs, and skill enhancement training. Market linkages are developed, and the products are aggregated into existing government marketing platforms. This ensures both greater reach and a fair price. With the advantage of scale and the power of collective negotiation with the market, what was earlier difficult for individual ultra-poor households has now been made possible by the livelihood clusters. Another key innovation is developing a set of cluster-level federation as centers of excellence under the Satat Jeevikoparjan Yojana immersion site strategy. The centers of excellence are used as demonstration sites for best practices and to facilitate exchange of learnings between every CLF. The VOs and CLFs in the immersion sites are specially trained to perform multiple functions. Modular training is provided for the master resource persons. The program participants are also provided enterprise development training, graduation training, and more. There are also regular refresher courses. The continuous strengthening of every stakeholder has played a key role in the successful outcomes. Today, these centers are important sites for documenting and share learnings as well as exchanging ideas with other community institutions and grassroots organizations working with the graduation model in India and abroad. Building digital infrastructure is another major innovation that is connecting various dots of this program. An SJY app has been developed for data collection and accessing information. A customized and localized online support system has been created. The stream of digital content accessible through smartphones ensures high quality and timely information for the program staff. This provides an intense mentoring support and guidance to both households and frontline workers, particularly in remote areas. The centralized help desk and call management services, supported by a toll-free number, also provides immediate guidance and ensures faster resolution of issues faced in the field. The new digital dashboard has made tracking of project interventions and household-level outcomes much easier. This real-time monitoring system has helped in improving analytical capabilities for forward-looking program decisions, as well as addressing the issues at a very initial stage. With its innovative community-led collective approach, Satat Jeevikoparjan Yojana has now become an example not only before the country but across the world. With the new innovations, a new, more equitable, more empowered Bihar is taking shape.
Thank you for that video. Moving on to the next session, may I please call upon Mr. Gregory Chen, who is the Managing Director, Ultra Poor Graduation Initiative, BRAC, to share his lessons from BRAC Urban Graduation Program in Bangladesh. Oh, yes.
So first of all, to say that I don't have any lessons to share myself. I know very little about urban graduation anywhere, let alone Bangladesh. I do have on the line the director of BRAC's Ultra Poor Graduation Program in Bangladesh, Palash Das. Palash, can you hear us? Yeah? Palash, can you hear us? Okay, Palash is there. I'm going to assume that he's following along.
Yes.
Okay, great. We can hear you. So just hold on mute and we'll have you come in during the question and answer session. So this is a presentation that Palash and the team in Bangladesh and Dhaka developed. And I'm here to present it on their behalf, just to try and touch upon a few of the lessons and experiences that BRAC has had. I'm going to try and keep this quite short. I'm not going to make it a comprehensive presentation, partly out of the interest of time for all of you, but partly because I actually don't know all of it. I'm going to do my best to convey what I do know. Can I go to the next slide, or I've got the clicker here? Okay. Okay, does that work? So, to make this a little bit, and again, we're in India where we love to digitize everything. So what I'm going to ask is that as you have questions, please go to this site, and there's a place where you can either anonymously or put your name against a question. And we'd love to invite you to take questions as we go through, and Palash will try to address those after I've done the presentation. I may also try to address those ones that I feel confident in taking on. If you follow on your phone, you'll also be able to see what everyone else's questions are, which I think enriches everybody's experience in following along with this. Okay. So before well, let me jump right in. So this is a bit of the journey for BRAC in ultra poor graduation. Let me pause quickly and tell a little bit of historical context. BRAC started in 1972, and it was entirely a rural institution, a rural development. In fact, BRAC originally meant Bangladesh Relief and Assistance Committee, Bangladesh Rural Assistance Committee, and of course it's now evolved, and we no longer use the term Bangladesh or rural because we are no longer just rural and we're no longer just Bangladesh. In fact, it's just BRAC today. But you can see here, let me jump to the next piece, that graduation began actually experimentation in the late 90s when we recognized that even though Bangladesh was growing, that there were large pockets of ultra-poor or extreme poor people being left out. So we began the program on graduation as a rural program in 2002. Let me click through this. Is it moving along, Ramesh? Here we go. The urban program, in fact, began more than 10 years ago. But as Palash might explain, we actually started it and stopped it a few times as rural problems took our attention again and became our priority. So while it's been there for 10 years, I think we've sort of started it, stopped it, and restarted it over those periods of time. You can see here we've also taken on some other priorities in disability or in climate adaptive graduation, but we're not going to focus on that today. We want to focus on the urban piece. Next slide, please. Very quickly, we do this today in 10 cities in Bangladesh. That's where the red dots are. Of course, Dhaka is the biggest, but it's across 10 quite different kinds of cities in Bangladesh. Next slide, please. This is very similar to the slide Rahul gave, but it's our version of the same slide. Rahul had given the slide on the graduation approach. It's got these dimensions to it, these four main dimensions. I won't spend too much time, but it is very much in line with what SJY does here in India, in Bihar. Next slide, please. So, like a lot of graduation programs, the baseline first thing we do is, so if you look at the horizontal x-axis, we begin with targeting, right? So good targeting, and then we're looking at 18 months, 24 months of these four main dimensions that we've talked about. And I won't go into the detail, but there is a package that is quite similarly delivered in rural areas that we also try and do in urban areas. Let me go through the slides here quickly. These are pieces that you would all be familiar with. I'm not going to go into the detail. One thing that is different in urban areas to say is that in fact we start screening for graduation earlier at 15 months, and graduation can happen earlier in urban areas at 18 months, whereas typically in rural areas for us it would be 24 months before graduation. So one of the questions I have for Palash, why 18 months in urban areas? Why is it a little bit faster? My first question, maybe somebody could put that on Slido for me. I don't know the answer to that. Palash, that's the first question. Next, please. So, just a few comments on the urban context in Bangladesh. Maybe click to the next piece. Just that the strict definitions of ultra-poor, extreme poor, less than $2.15 a day, less than $3.2 per day, those are slightly more fluid definitions in an urban area because of the complexity of poverty, the higher cost of living in urban areas, that we don't have a strict definition or a very hard line of what we consider to be ultra-poor or extreme poor in the urban areas. It's a little bit of a different definition than we might use in a traditional World Bank, what is extreme poor, what is poor type measurement environment. There are a number of these urban context questions. There's survey data. There are questions of inequality. As in rural areas, poverty is multifaceted. And there are shocks that hit urban areas, and particularly COVID-19, which in our experience hit urban livelihoods even more hard than rural ones. In fact, during COVID-19, quite a few people moved back to the village to restart livelihoods in rural areas because the urban was so hard hit. Next slide, please. These are a number of other context things that I think would be perhaps familiar here in Bihar, that the projections are we're going to be a more urban environment in Bangladesh. There's a lot of youth. Climate introduces new vulnerabilities. We talked earlier about the extreme heat episodes. There are the intergenerational effects are there much more pronounced in urban areas, in fact, and we'll come to our approach, which actually has a bit more of an intergenerational actual approach and engagement of people aged 14 to 18, in addition to the adults in the household, and I'll come to that in a second. Next slide. We know this. Let's skip through this slide and we'll go right to the next one. Oh, this looks a little bit odd, but maybe this is just a... wow. Okay. Let me take a big picture. What is the significance of this slide? First of all, there's a household size is a little bit smaller, 4 rather than 5 in an urban area. Most of our participants in the program are actually sub 30 years in age. One thing we've not been able to do is really diversify the enterprises or livelihoods that they get into. You can see here this is heavily dominated by small business. And these would be, I think, mostly, and Palash can confirm, these would be mostly kirana shops, right? So to us, we have a lot of work to do. You can see being a mechanic or a rickshaw driver or getting into a salary-based job, doing any of these other things is actually still a pretty rare occurrence within the BRAC system. And so one of our jobs right now is to actually further diversify the kind of sustainable livelihoods that are possible in Bangladesh. There's a last slide, or no, there's a next slide that's quite important, which is our approach. And this is true, of course, try one more slide. Yeah. This is a complex slide, but let me pause here for a second because I think it's got some important dimensions that Palash can explain. The blue circle on the right is much more community-based interventions, WASH, some community infrastructure, and on the left blue, you've got much more the household engagement question. Our approach in urban areas is to actually engage on both. Now remember, we're an NGO, not the government. So in Bihar, you're going to be able to do this a bit differently, maybe even better, because you have the arms of government that you might be able to influence and improve some of these questions. But as an NGO, we approach it both at the community level and with the households. A big difference is that if you look here, the groups we have are ages 14 to 18. So these are often people who are struggling to stay in school, who need new livelihood opportunities. So we create interfaces with groups that are more in the youth segment, the 14 to 18, and there are slightly older household members, the 18 plus, 18 to 60 it says here. This is not an asset transfer in the urban areas as much as it is an intense skills training. So it's not, in a rural Bangladesh, we do much more livestock transfer, other kinds of productive assets. In an urban area, we have a skills focus. And in fact, BRAC has a whole skills development program, which is a different program, different vertical, but our graduation ties up with the skills development program. So I hope maybe Palash could, one of the things would be to help clarify or strengthen my description of that. So I think I'm on to the last slide, and you'll be relieved to hear that. So the targeting criteria. We talked a lot about the importance of targeting, and I just want to talk through a number of these. So a per capita income criteria. These are sort of the must-haves on the left. A household member in that age range of 18 to 60. This is a critical one, they need to be in that one place for at least 6 months. Is that the right criteria? We found it to be practically necessary, because if they've been there temporarily, they may move on, and we lose track of where they are in the urban areas. So it's got a pragmatic element. It might not be what we prefer, but it's sort of a pragmatic question. The no loan, no institutional loan to us is a proxy that they might not be economically at a level where they could acquire a loan. And then there's on the right, it's 2 of the 3 on the right. So family has irregular income, no productive asset, more than 10,000 taka, and or children are in and out of school, and so have some other instability in their lives. Those criteria are not set in stone. I'm sure Palash could tell us that those probably were different 2-3 years ago. They're probably going to be different again in another 2 years as we learn and try and figure these things out. So let me pause there, and I'm going to pull up the questions. And Palash, maybe I'll invite you in to, first of all, correct any misstatements that I made, but also maybe if you want to say a few words of clarification around the graduation program in Bangladesh, and then I will help moderate for you on the questions. So go ahead.
Thanks, Greg. Can you hear me, Ramesh? I mean, Ramesh, can...
We can hear you. We can hear you loud and clear. Go ahead.
Oh, thanks. Thanks, Greg. I think I'd like to add a few points here. First of all, as Greg was sharing, so we started our program in urban areas almost like 10 years back. But in between, we started, looking into, other areas, not necessarily urban areas. That in rural areas, the poverty was increasing rapidly. So because of our resources, we had to focus on rural areas in between, say from 2014 to 2016 onwards. Then later on, what we have observed in Bangladesh, that from 2015 onwards, the urbanization process in Bangladesh, that was happening so rapidly. Then we started, finding more and more our migrants, coming from rural areas and settling down in urban areas. And that started creating pressure in urban areas, from access to services, from, access to various livelihoods, opportunities. From all of these dimensions, so the number of urban poor started increasing. At the same time, we started also finding, like many countries, many peri-urban areas. So again, then we started thinking, started designing our urban program, not only focusing in established urban centers like Dhaka and Chittagong, but also other peri-urban areas. But over a period of time, last 2-3 years, because of COVID and because of more visible impact of climate change, we are seeing the situation, the vulnerabilities, for urban poor in urban areas, including peri-urban areas, it's increasing in many folds. So that's why that forced us to think about how to redesign our urban ultra-poor graduation program. And last 2-3 years, what we have found is that since, income poverty within the whole, multi-dimension of poverty, within the whole package, income poverty, is a significant portion, we have found that in urban areas, once they have received, let's say, some supports, some supports in a sense, some access to, financial, capacities and others, means they started, generating more resources from themselves. And that happened so fast. And that is one of the key reasons what we are seeing right now for graduation, entire period for graduation in urban areas is pretty much, within 12 months. But in some parts, in Dhaka and Chittagong, we are seeing it right now. It's happening in, 13 or 14 months. In some peri-urban areas, it's taking, around 18 to 20 months. So on an average, it's 18 months. And last 6 or 7 months, what we are observing is that it's also that the time period is shrinking there. is coming down to 16 or 15 months. So that is one of the reasons. And perhaps in coming years, we'll be having more and more evidence, and also we'll be having more trends established why it is happening, and we'll be having more understanding, deeper understanding. So that was the thing. The second is that I would like to touch the second last slide about the whole framework. As I mentioned, we started thinking how to redesign urban ultra-poor graduation program, considering the rapid urbanization and other vulnerabilities due to climate change and others, and also many other factors are involved there. That's why you start redesigning this. And the one of the significant difference here is that we started targeting households in urban areas, and we found that within households there are school dropped children, and also there are children who are going to school, but at the same time they are involved in many informal related economic activities within the local economy within urban areas. And that's why we thought that it's important to include those children from the same household and provide them some support, so that when they are fully ready for this to be active in the local economy, they can have better opportunities and access to more jobs available in urban market, in urban economy. And that is one of the reasons to change the whole targeting criteria. So that is one. The second is that in urban areas we have also done some bit of work. Is that the World Bank's standard $2.15 per day or $3.12 per day, that is not applicable when we apply it here in Bangladesh. So we try to come up with city-wise, urban center-wise per capita income, and we applied that in all the 10, in fact 9 city centers. So in all of those 9 city centers, the per capita, lowest per capita income for ultra-poor household is different. So those, one of the key targeting criteria, we are mentioning that households per capita income, but those are different. I mean, it varies from, the capital Dhaka to, the Chittagong. The second one is that the productive value of the asset the households are having at this moment. And this is a minimum, as you can see, Greg presented, the 10,000 Bangladeshi taka worth household, the value of the productive asset at the household level. We are considering that as a minimum level. But I must say that we struggled a lot there. We had to come to these 10,000 taka, which is equivalent to somehow $100 and so. But even we fix this one for this year, but for next year that may not be the case. So what I'm trying to say is that the sum of the targeting criteria, what we have put right now, we keep revisiting those, and this productive value of the productive asset is significantly different from the value of the productive asset in rural areas. So the third key important factor, as we all know, is that since most of them, they moved from rural areas to urban areas, and they keep moving from one, particular one low income settlements to another income settlements within the cities. So that we have identified as one of the key risk factors. And since in our country, in Bangladesh, the system is not, technologically advanced enough to track all of those, people, that's why in order to minimize the risk, we put also one more criteria, is that whoever will be targeting that particular household, or those participants from that particular household should be living in one low income settlement area at least 6 months. Mostly because so that we can link them with some of the community level committees, which will be, say, like, working as one of the critical stakeholders to ensure the access to the services provided by various government agencies. So the second point in relation to targeting criteria, yes, these are the three kind of key uh, uh, things or key elements we considered when it is about urban ultra-rural graduation.
So Parash,
Greg, I think I touched the points and.
Thank you. So I have, Parash, I think you've largely addressed the questions in Slido, the good ones. I mean, I heard on the, I have two quick follow-on questions, and we're reaching the end of time here, so it would be great but to hear from you just to quickly follow on the questions that I'm seeing on Slido. So 18 months, so two questions. On 18 months, it seems that the economic activity is faster in urban areas, right? So this is the reason we can reduce the time. Is the psychological and social side of it also faster? Can you talk a bit about the psychological, social side in urban areas? That's the first question. Second question is, we've outlined here the targeting criteria. But just very quickly, is there any participatory wealth ranking or anything like that that goes into the targeting? So just two quick questions that are coming out of the Slido.
Yes, I think let me start with the last one. Yes, it is a participatory process. What we are following also for urban. I mean, in relation to the targeting for urban ultra-rural graduation program, when we are saying participatory process, as I'm sure most of our colleagues they know about this whole PRA, participatory rural appraisal process. That's a pretty much established process to identify any participant for any, say, development program. But we have modified that too. So we basically came up with a blended approach. So it's some elements we have taken from participatory, say, rural appraisal, that particular process, and also we added a few more from focus group discussions. So that blended approach we applied to identify participants for urban ultra-rural graduation program, and that we have done also in two phases. The first one is like, applying that the blended approach. The target, say we identify the primary target participants, but later we also take a more participatory approach to, say, verify some of them to be fully, say, final participants of the program. So that two-phase approaches we have say applied here. Now coming to the social side, this is some of the, say, one of the areas we are still observing. Still trying to understand and learn in urban context. But one thing what we are finding here is that since most of the basic, say, services are being provided by government, I mean, it's not the same in rural areas. So that's why we do see that, say, community level committee formation, whereas the participants are one of the key stakeholders. It's becoming much and more easier in urban context, and they are coming together when it is about, say, demanding one particular basic services from the government and taking it forward. Okay. So I do see kind of the social level empowerment is happening much faster in urban areas, and despite say the many participants are coming from various geographical locations and also from, say, various backgrounds, with various backgrounds. But this is something we still need to, say, work on.
So Palash, I think we're reaching time. Did you have one more thing to say?
Okay. I mean, what I'd like to say is that this is so important in the whole process. We are trying to understand, say, when it is about poverty reduction, extreme poverty reduction in urban areas, it's so important to understand the process of urbanization. So it's not only the existing urban centers, but also, say, many rural areas are becoming peri-urban areas, and those will be seeing more and more in coming say years. So it's important to have say to review and revisit say any model, any intervention packages. Say every 2 years or so, and that is important, and that can be like one of the critical things. Not only to address poverty reduction, but also addressing inequality in urban context.
Plashta, thank you. Thank you for finding the time this afternoon. And just to say, I mean, from BRAC's experience, we're obviously still learning in the urban areas, and so hope to learn alongside Bihar and SJY and the government of Bihar figuring out urban issues. And I think what happens here will also influence what BRAC does in Bangladesh. So. All right.
Thank you, Greg. Sorry for the last minute glitch out there, but that's the challenge we all have to face, maybe. So we move on to our next panel discussion. And in the panel discussion next, and thank you. I know we are running short of time, and we wish to close by latest by 4:30 p.m. So if you give us a little bit of time, then we may go for a question answer round, Greg, because there are some questions that some people would like to ask. Yes, please. We are now open, so if anybody has any questions or to Palash or to Greg on the Bangladesh experience. Yeah, we can see few hands. Can we pass on the mics there?
So thank you so much, Greg and Palash, for that presentation. I'm Tini Sahani from the Aga Khan Foundation. So the question is that one of the criteria for targeting was that you would look at households that had stayed in the slum for 6 months. Now, when we are saying we will target the really poor, do you think that that would not be a limiting one? Because, I mean, the poorest would live in makeshift accommodation. They might also have to shift at times. So how much of a weight would you put on that criteria for actually really identifying the poorest to receive the support?
Yeah, I mean, I would just simply say as a practical matter, we need to stay with the household for 18 to 24 months. So if they're moving and we can't find them, it's just a practical reality. Now, that's not to say it's the right criteria, right? Maybe there's a better way to do it. So, but I think the reason was that we felt we could only work with people who we could go into a community and work with in that particular community. I think every slum situation in every city, what I was hearing this morning, is different. And so the slums of Dhaka will not be the same as what you get in Patna, and how they change and how they behave will probably be very different in Patna, is my guess. And so I think whatever criteria we use in Patna or Gaya and Muzaffarabad would have to be quite specific to those urban locations, and the Bangladesh, the Dhaka ones may not apply. we're also an NGO, right? So we don't have the same ability to track homeless populations, right? But a government may be in a better position to work with more transient populations. You also have Aadhaar, which allows you actually a tool to better track people, which Bangladesh has a national ID, but it's not as good as Aadhaar, let me be frank. Another question.
You have already given the answer, but one thing, I am Chirashri from Mobile Crashes. I just want to share our experiences in India, because in urban areas it is more complex in India. And 18 months, Palash was sharing that there it is 18 months for urban and 24 months for rural area. But here I think in India it will be much more a month we have to cover, because in urban area it is a much complex and it will take longer time.
No, I was asking also from the point of view of what kind of work that they are doing, collective work versus individual enterprise, and I didn't get a full sense of that from the presentation. If you can say something about that.
So what is their work, their livelihood opportunities?
Yeah, livelihood opportunities, what we are going for.
Well, I'll be honest, I think we've not made as much progress on that as we would like. We have a skills development program that's supposed to get people into mobile repair, electricians, plumbing, construction. But frankly, when you look at the program, most of it is still Kirana shop. So this is, I'd say, an area of development for BRAC. We would want them to be coming fully into the urban economy, but we're not there yet. It didn't go up there, but we presently have 22 different occupations or livelihoods that we try and work with the urban communities on. It's not clear all of them will work. So I think a lot of our work in Bangladesh is still very experimental, frankly.
Yeah, and so, no evidence or no paper yet.
There might be a paper. I'm not aware of it, but we'll work on that. There may be something written on this, and I just don't have it. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm Sanjay Gupta from Nidan. A simple question. With very little skills, no capacity, and almost no investment, zero investment capacity, how do you select the sector that what kind of skills need to be developed? For example, in the urban context of India, most of the government programs have been largely on the supply side, while it may be very different from what they really want. So how do you select what capacity needs to be built, what investment to bring in?
Let me say, we don't have an answer, but what we try and do is look at the urban marketplace and ecosystem for where the opportunities are. A lot of the work is we're trying to connect people to construction or to waste management or to mobile repair, these very urban activities, rickshaw driving, these kinds of very urban activities that would appear to be viable in a given environment. But let me say we've not figured that one out, right? It's still a very hard thing to do skills training and assume then that they'll get a livelihood just from the skills training. There's probably more to it than just simply imparting skills, right? So I don't have a good answer for you. What I would say is that the work we plan to do in Bihar with all of you very much wants to look at what the possibilities and potential for livelihoods are in a given environment. And then we would have to work based on that assessment on creating those livelihood linkages and opportunities. Sorry, that's not really a very good answer, but that's the best I can do.
That's the reality.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you. For a time constraint, we can't take more questions now. We move on to our next panel discussion, which is on urban livelihoods and skilling. Before that, I would request Amrita to present a bouquet to Mr. Rajiv Ranjan, the ACEO Bihar Skills Development Mission. He has joined us recently. Thank you. And with that, I would request the panelist, again, Shri Sunil Kumar Yadav, Mission Director, Bihar Urban Livelihoods Mission, to please come on the dais. Shri Rajiv Ranjan, ACEO, Bihar Skills Development Mission, Shri Hitendra Singh, the Buddha, from the Buddha Institute, Srimati Tini Soni, Aga Khan Foundation in India, Shri Shantamay Chatterjee, Vice President, Bandhan Nagar, and this entire panel discussion will be moderated by Irina Sinha, who is the Director, Strategic Partnerships and Systems from Project Concern International. So can we do it till 4:30 maybe? Thank you.
Thank you, Mahua. Welcome to this last session, but in terms of the relevance of the topic, certainly not the least. Urban livelihoods and skilling is a very, very pertinent issue to discuss on, as we are in the stage of designing a program strategy to enable an ecosystem which can address the multidimensional and the nuanced problems of urban poverty. So, having said that, I would like to welcome all the panelists to this discussion. I really feel honored. And I was actually looking at the brief profiles of each of the panel members, and I'm sorry I may not be able to talk it out, but I think together we bring an experience of more than 120 years of this sector. So that's quite huge. And I would like to trigger this discussion by sharing my own thoughts on this whole subject of skilling. And I feel that providing skilling opportunity is actually another way of giving an asset in the form of skills to the poor and the ultra poor, both in the rural and urban spaces, to enable them to set up their own ventures or even take up salaried jobs. Now, needless to mention that the government has a whole plethora of programs and schemes, the National Skill Development Mission, the National Urban Livelihoods Mission, and a lot of them. But looking into the growing urban population, generating employment opportunities in the urban space, which becomes more complex when we start talking about the ultra poor in the urban space, is now emerging as a big, big concern for the policymakers. So I will just leave my thoughts here and turn on to the panelists. I would first like to talk to you, sir, Shri Rajiv Ranjan, who heads the Bihar Skill Development Mission. And I think no other than you can give us the best perspective of where we are in terms of the skilling when it comes to the Bihar context. So if you could please talk a little about how the skilling sector is emerging, and also maybe what do you feel are the potential trades and the potential job sectors that will come in the future. To you, sir.
Thank you. Actually, when we are exploring the opportunities for urban poor graduation program, we have come through a lot of explorations, like urban poor falls into three categories. One who has their own dwellings and living there, but they do not have any livelihood, proper livelihood means. Second, they do not have their own dwelling, but they are residing in the under the bridges, on the nalas, with irregular type of dwellings, and they are there for many years. So other is that, and the last one is more difficult. One, they are coming in some seasons, staying here and then going to their rural or their own places. In these three types of populations, we have found that it is very difficult to run any skilling program for them. And Bihar Skill Development Mission is working on a lot of skilling programs. Around 450 programs are running under the aegis of the Bihar Skill Development Mission. Recently, we have worked with the Patna Municipal Commission about the e-card program for the urban poor women. And I thought that it is one of the program on which we can focus for the urban poor graduation program for empowering women of those urban poor families. The second thing which come to our mind is instead of targeting a single person or a family head only, we should target on the whole group, whole family and community as well. I have one experience of a community-based urban poor alleviation program of Mumbai, Dharavi, where they have formed 10 to 15 households community, and in that particular community, a similar type of skilling program were run. That has earned a lot, like achar making, then toy making, cloth toy making is one of the skilling program which they have taken there. So we can work on those programs also. And for young boys and girls, we can suggest that with the help of social welfare department, we can have training programs along with education of these boys and girls, so that they have the opportunity to educate them as well as skill them as well, and they have the option to choose better future in the in their hope that they can go for some better choice in their life in the later part of the their livelihood, and so they can help their families as well. So these are the basic programs we have thought about the alleviation of the urban poor. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You very aptly mentioned that it's really a challenge to even think of a skilling program for makeshift kind of population. But we are really encouraged to hear that you have started breaking the gender stereotypes, and we did come across a group yesterday which spoke about the training which the BSDM has imparted to women to ply the e-rickshaws. And I think you also brought in a very pertinent point of looking at the skilling of the youth. Thank you so much, sir. We'll come back to you with more questions. But now I would like to turn over to Sir you, Shri Sunil Kumar Yadav. He is the mission director. And I think the only one question that I have for you, sir, is how do you see supporting this Bihar Urban Ultra Poor graduation program? A lot of the work which happens under the NULM is likely to support this program. So what is the kind of role that you expect to play in shaping up this program and in taking this ahead?
Thank you so much. Post-lunch session has never been my favorite. Out of 120 years of experience which you have mentioned, mine is just limited to 12 years in service of IS. So I'm sorry for that. I just got 12 years of experience to put in. Okay, serious stuff now. I'm mission director for National Urban Livelihood Mission for about a year. And I just like to say a few lines about the origin of the program and how Bihar is faring in that. National Urban Livelihood Mission took its genesis from the policy which came in 2007, about National Urban Housing and Habitat Policy 2007. So it talked about sustainable development of the habitats and universal and equitable access to land, shelter and services. So that was the premise on which this National Urban Livelihood Mission started. Now I was just talking to the team of BRAC and saying that they don't have to worry thinking that they have to start from the scratch. Already the mission is working here and the components which they want to work on, and skill being one of them, we already have the database ready. Okay, we do agree that it is not the exhaustive or well-researched or well-surveyed data, but we do have the data. And we have done a bit of work on that as well. Explaining that what are components, we have got employment through skilling and placement. We have got a component there. We have got a component of employment, self-employment program. We have a component which looks up after the urban shelter for the urban poor who don't have the shelter. Then we have the component which looks after support for street vendors. And finally, we have a component which looks after social or institution development, social mobilization and institution development. Now, these are the components which have been working in Bihar, and already some kind of skeleton or structure is ready. So what I was saying is that the need now is to find out the gaps, where the gaps are existing, and fill in those gaps. Now, regarding poverty, I would like to just digress a little from the topic about skilling. If you say poverty in urban sector is a little bit complex, I would say it's more contextual. It is a lot bit different from what we experience in rural sector. It's a lot bit different, the programs, the poverty elevation programs, the community mobilization programs, which we had fairly good experience in terms of Jeevika and other organizations. It's going to be a bit different, and like Greg said, it's challenge. We don't know what is there. Because though we are working on it, but we haven't yet found a perfect solution of what all items we have to include into scaling, what are the real demands of the urban poor. Because urban poor, like it's a cohort of people who are coming out of either push factor or pull factor from the nearby areas, rural areas. They may want to continue with their traditional occupations, or they may not want to continue with their traditional occupations. So we have to look into that. We cannot simply say because this community has been working on bamboos, so we should blindly say that, okay, all will be making bamboos only. No, there may be some group in that which we want to diversify, which doesn't want to continue with that bamboo thing. So finding out the skilling aspect is going to be a challenge. Let me put it that way. We cannot put them in some structure, in some statistical thing that these are the items which we will take up for scaling. And Bihar, before that I would say, all the studies and the researches which have been done is regarding the metros and other big cities. And Bihar falls neither of them. It is totally different. If you see the flavor of the people out here, what they do, their occupational preferences, their educational background, their other social background, is totally different from what we see in NCR, big cities, Bangalore, Hyderabad, or Kolkata, I would say. It's totally different. So this is a dark territory, and we are very thankful to BRAC, like they have just come in and they are ready to shoulder the responsibilities, and we'll see what comes up. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. very pleased to hear that we already have a structure and a very well thought out program, and we've also visited a couple of the groups in the urban areas, and we feel that for us this will be a very, very good starting point, and that we will not have to operate in an empty field. And I also quite agree with you that identification of the skilling needs is a very, very critical thing that we will all have to look into. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. May I now move on to you, Tini? So, Tini has significant experience of working on issues of agriculture and livestock, particularly with smallholder farmers. And she has worked a lot on sustainable livelihoods development programs in the rural context. But may I request you, Tini, to talk about, what are the potential opportunities, or I should say linkages, that you see in the rural and the urban skilling and the livelihoods sphere, if there are any? Yeah.
Thanks so much, Irina, and I just wanted to say that we are so delighted to be here. We have a wonderful partnership with Jeevika in rural areas where, we've been supporting women's economic empowerment program. It's also been wonderful to listen through the session since the morning, also to hear the Didis from the program who spoke about how they have graduated out of poverty. So I think there's a significant amount of learning from that program as well, which we can bring to this new program. Also just linked with what the mission director of NULM said, that it is complex. The whole issue of urban livelihoods is complex. It's also complex to really identify who the poor are. So I think the investment, given that we will start on a pilot program, perhaps the investment on who the poor are. In the context of Bihar, which has such a significant, such a strong agriculture portfolio, I also see immense possibilities of strengthening the agriculture-urban linkages. Some of the examples could be that the areas around Patna or the areas around Gaya are significant areas where vegetables are grown. There is a market here in Patna. How could we facilitate aggregation at rural areas, and for that aggregation to come here and to create jobs along the way? So I would say let us look at the agri-urban linkages and try and strengthen those where I see immense opportunity over there. Also, I feel, given the very strong work that Jeevika has done in the rural areas, perhaps we can also start there. Like, it's not always true that people migrate for additional economic opportunities to urban centers. Often they migrate because they have nothing to keep them back in rural areas. So it is really the poorest in rural areas that migrate to urban areas, and the only thing that they have to offer is their labor. So could we start by actually mapping the migrants who come here and provide some skilling before they migrate also, so that they migrate at stronger terms? So basis some of the work that we had done in Uttar Pradesh, where we worked with migrants at the source. So we work in northern Uttar Pradesh, Bahraich, which is a major source destination for migrants, and the people from there go all the way to Mumbai. And when we were discussing with them as we designed the program, one of them said we go as laborers. But if we could be trained on, say, shuttering, for example, we would already graduate to the next level of work. So that could be one possibility that we could think of. We have already such wonderful examples in the Jeevika program, the Didi Ke Rasoi. Now that initiative is very, very amenable to an urban context as well. Could we build further on that? Green Delights, which is another initiative which actually brings agricultural produce to urban areas. Could we do more of that? So the value addition to agricultural produce, I do feel that there is a lot there. Creating second earners in homes, looking at the livelihoods of women for example. And again, I would say in Patna, can we map demand? What is the demand for services? Where is the real need? Is it around, say, home services? Is it around, say, to look at the elderly, given that there are also very, there's a lot of migration from Bihar to other countries also. They leave behind the elderly parents. So could that be an opportunity that we could look at as well? For urban livelihoods, I also feel that perhaps creating, and it's linked to the points that Gautam made in the previous session, the adaptability, strengthening adaptation, the nimbleness, so that as markets change, people can also adapt to that. So I think that is also important. So we also invest in our skilling programs and actually strengthening adaptation so that people can assess what trends are and then adapt to that. I'm a bit conscious about the time, so I'll stop here, but happy to come in later, Irina.
Thank you so much, Tini. I know this is a topic where you can actually talk a lot about, but yes, we have a time constraint. But just wanted to reiterate on some very important perspectives which you've brought in, and the whole aspect of doing a mapping of the migrants at source. I think that's a very, very important thing to look into. And also you talked about mapping the demands and value addition to the rural produce. How can that be taken up in the urban sector? And yes, you did talk about engaging the second earners in the family. Thank you. So I will now turn to you, Hitendra. Hitendra is the theme lead at the Buddha Institute, and he's supporting the growth of a lot of entrepreneurs who are called Buddha Fellows. To you, I would really want you to talk about how your programming is going to support this intervention. Do you see any opportunities of any possible linkages between the way you nurture your entrepreneurs and any learnings that you can talk about to bring it back to this program?
Of course, Irina. First of all, thank you very much for BRAC team and Jeevika team for inviting me here. Let me explain 4 or 5 sentences about our organization so that will actually set the tone what exactly I'm going to tell you. I represent Buddha Institute and we are a kind of organization which are actually promoting development entrepreneurs. And when we say anything about the development entrepreneurs, we have a very specific meaning that entrepreneur should actually work for the social impact. And he or she should actually work with the marginalized, poor, and with those community who actually need support. And our entrepreneurs are working both in the urban areas and rural areas. Largely, we have entrepreneurs whom we are supporting. They are actually giving their impact in the rural areas, but they have a strong connect. Our program basically is not only to identify them and give them some sort of support in terms of कि हाँ उनको training दे दिया कुछ कर दिया, but what we are actually, we have 5 components. First of all, we identify them and then we try to develop their whole business perspective, and for that we invest so many different type of product we have. Through that actually we try to build their capacity also, but one of them is financial assistance, which is very much needed for any entrepreneur to grow with. So that financial assistance is being actually given. We actually try to connect one dedicated mentor for each entrepreneur so that all the business nuances should be actually addressed whenever it is required. Third thing, which is very important, the market connect, the investors, who will be the person who will be investing in the new entrepreneurs. And probably when you talk about the social impact and everything, there are many questions are there. When you are not talking about the money, you are talking about the social impact. There are huge number of questions how you are going to do that. And the worst thing is that कि बेचारा एक छोटा सा entrepreneur अपने आप में इतने सारे questions सुन करके ही वो सोचता है कि मैं बेकार में यहाँ आ गया हूँ. So this is the reality also. That is how we are actually dealing, but we are actually supporting them. And for like me, we all are actually engaged in actually giving them also the technical support which is required at the field level. But what you said, Irina, this is very important. We have around, in last 2-3 years, we have been able to develop some 24 entrepreneurs. They all are actually working in 10 states. But unfortunately, we are not present in Bihar, Jharkhand, or the northern eastern state where need is there. So our next effort is that we should have, recently we will be launching our new cohort recruitment, and we have a focus that we should actually get some entrepreneurs from Bihar, northeastern states, UP and Jharkhand also. But all said and done, what I am just trying to tell you is what kind of connections we can have. I am not going to tell you the whole nitty-gritties, but I'll just give you 2 examples what our Buddha Fellows is doing and how we can actually utilize that kind of thing here also and how we can replicate. One of Buddha Fellows which is working with us is Mr. Angraj Swami. He has actually set up a company named Ecorap and he is working in Jaipur. What basically he is doing, he is actually solving the problem of waste segregation. And his companies actually have a kind of 400, I think more than 400 outlets, Horeca, basically hotel, restaurants, cafe. And he is actually providing all sorts of smart bins and he is collecting, recycling and selling it out. The best part is that by doing these things, he has actually developed a team of some 25 rag pickers who are actually getting permanent kind of job from his company. That is itself a kind of great opportunity where we can see how this model could be actually scaled up, because Patna itself, I think, is a huge need of actually having this waste management kind of thing. Another fellow which is working in Pune, what he is doing, actually he is very smart in political connection, I must say you. His smartness is actually utilized in that terms he is going to the corporators and he is just pursuing them to give him a kind of places where he can organize a very structured market for those vendors who have been not able to actually access to the real customers. इधर उधर बेच लेते थे उनके लिए. So he is running around 12 markets in Pune, and each market he has 50 to 60 stalls, and these stalls are owned by those vegetable vendors who earlier have no place to actually sell their things. By having this kind of thing, they all are actually having a very strong and perpetual income, and one stall holder is basically supporting 15 to 20 farmers. So this is how the impact is being transferred. So what Tini is saying, I see a huge potential we can actually do it. I am from Bihar, I have spent my whole first 5 years in Jeevika itself. So I see a great opportunity where we can do. And there are 2-3 more examples that we can also explain. But here I would like to raise one critical question. I don't know how far it is relevant to this forum, but I, being a kind of HR person, can't resist telling these things. हम लोग तो इतना कुछ कर रहे हैं, but tell me, after 2-3 years, who is going to actually take over the responsibility of working with this kind of ultra poor? I tell you, my experience says the industry, human resource industries for the development sector is in huge crisis. People are not sensitized. They are coming in this sector only for the money, and this kind of program needs sensitivity. This kind of program needs human value has to be there. And our academic institutions who are supposed to produce the professionals for this kind of sector, I tell you, maybe I am very harsh, but I am telling you, I have all data, because in the last 6-7 years I have been visiting all the academic institutions for recruiting YPs, and I am finding it is very hard to get a very dedicated YP who can actually say, sir, I want to work with this cause. And I am not saying they are in the fault, because they have certain things they have to actually maintain, but how it is being done. So the scaling of the mindset of the youth is also important. Our program is also actually helping how people could be actually mobilized to work in this sector. If you allow, I have a 6-minute video that could also be actually shown to you how IT graduate have become a kind of Buddha fellows, and he is impacting a lot with the farmers who are actually growing peanuts in the southern states. So this is how he is actually doing, and he is doing in the same model like Amul model is actually, Amul cooperative model is actually working. So in that way he is actually doing. So we need to create that kind of human resource pool, and at least that could be a kind of important kind of assignment for us, important kind of task for us to actually do these things. So that's all from my side. If you allow, I can show the video. Otherwise,
yeah, maybe towards the end. So thank you, Hitendra, and I do share your concern that we need more dedicated and committed minds, especially to work in a program like this. But at the same time, you see that there is a commitment here in Bihar with all the stakeholders, and that's the reason we are all here in this room today. So I would urge you to create more such entrepreneurs through your fellowship program in a place like Bihar who can become role models, right? And it can also engage more and more ultra poor households in their own ventures. Thank you so much. Okay, so coming back to you, Mr. Shantamoy Chatterjee, who is the Vice President from Bandhan Konnagar. And he has done a lot of policy formulation and a lot of frameworks, monitoring frameworks, quality frameworks for the skilling programs. And so I would like you to really talk about, as to what is your thoughts on what could be the quality markers, for youths, especially vulnerable, people, to ensure their connect, at least the connect of the job seekers and the employers in Bihar. So the quality markers that one has to take into consideration when designing a skilling program so that there is a connect. Yeah? Am I clear? And I just...
Okay. So if you look at, and what my experience, I will try to draw in from supporting Government of India develop the basic concept and structuralization of SSDM, the State Skills Development Mission and all that, and different other country experiences as well. So if you look at livelihood, basically it's an economic concept. I mean, you need to buy your food, pay for your education, etc. And where the money come from is something that you have, which could be your skills. So setting up a business requires skills, getting a job requires skills. So all of it is basically comes under the gamut of what we call it active labor market policy. So every government has this very strong potential commitment for its economic and social growth, that there is a equitable and justifiable distribution of resources to skill up people or to provide opportunities where they can see the economy, find their sectors and engage into it. Now what happens, from the ideal concept to what we actually are having in India, so if we are seeing the transition from say first 5-year plan with the concept of ITS coming on, and hardly we see or hear ITS nowadays. So I started my career looking at, kind of building up or strengthening when this initiative was taken way back in 2002 in Madhya Pradesh. I was heading the state exchange and the CM was very worried with rising unemployment, kuch karte hain kind of a concept. So the ITIs were given in charge and there were 94 ITIs in Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh combined together. So at the first visit I made and I saw who are coming into it, my first question was who would be coming in here. Then there was no kind of ultra poor, middle class, that concept was there. Initially it is like people who are in their undergraduates or dropouts, they would come from every kind of social structure, they would come hearing that this a course here, something they could do, and a mixed variety, book binding ka course hai, auto repairing ka course hai, this different type of cheeze hai, even entrepreneurship, some support systems are there, etc. The basic idea is, okay, I get over here and I get the support, scholarship, etc. and then I can establish myself. Either I get a job or I can start my own shop. From that transition to what we started with the first project I designed, that was Asian Development Bank's first initiative to enter from infrastructure, everything to human resource development or human capital development, basically. Tried out with India as one trial country, Bangladesh being the second trial country, and Vietnam being the trial country. So again, the same struggle I went through is conceptualizing, or as I found, policymakers to civil society organizations kind of making it complicated or getting confused about livelihood and skilling. So skills is required for everything that we do, and we have skills in society. What we need or what we are seeing is the youth or aspirants getting connected to what they can afford, what they can do, and where they could get the opportunity to start off or do it. So there are a lot of markers into this. The first qualifying of the marker is to understand that even traditional skills kind of can be very effective in coming into it. So people working with bamboo, if they get the technology to produce, make it more shinier, innovation, design, and kind of even systems instrumentation, they would be doing a whole lot of other things into it. So I was kind of supporting one of the initiatives way back. I mean, it's almost 10, 15 years I've been talking back, is when we didn't know bamboo as one of the most flexible natural organic material that is available, and the person came out with the concept of toothbrushes can be developed from bamboo. Now, what was the harsh point in it was a good concept, but only thing when you start brushing with it, you'd get your lips totally smeared out. The difference of the same material or the same conceptualization which is available in China or Vietnam, and they produce in lakhs and numbers, which you would find in many hotels in Mumbai also procuring and taking on because the technology is coming, is a little difference in technology, which is very little investment. But the factor over here is the skill, the conceptualization, the putting up of the effort to bring those traditional workmen into it or family of their generation and to understand it. Similarly, as from Bandhan also, we are running almost 23 now, what we call as the Bandhan Skills Development Centers, very low cost models that might appear. But we are working with NSDC in that sense of providing 3 months courses, because most of the people would like to see a jump start. The young people from the urban or the rural areas, I mean, here I wouldn't make a rural-urban kind of a difference because education level, access to education, aspiration, and particularly land is not returning that. And when you're looking at ultra-poor or the so-called the classic peripheral capitalism, rural-urban transition, anything altogether, it's all about your livelihood scope. So even for the families, I mean, ultra-poor, their children in their little bit of the higher age, say in their class 10 or 12 coming out. Even our new education policy 2020 is speaking about the same reality, that we are all looking at a demographic dividend, sort of young people, resourceful people, but are we able to skill them enough to connect to the jobs? So the qualifiers here is to first understand and have the mapping, kind of the regression analysis, 3-digit up to the district level to check out number of youths or people who would be requiring or aspiring to go beyond the concept of just unskilled labor. So semi-skilled, unskilled, and there are sort of sector skills council now. We have L&T having the building sector skills council. So there are huge opportunities there. And believe me, from 1 month to 3 months to 6 months, and people are looking into it. They have got the traditional knowledge, a little bit of polishing or new instrumentation can actually ensure much decent wage and better access to it. Number two experience that I have over these years, I mean, off and on, I have been looking into it, supporting Vivek National Institute and all. Every year there is a course that they run, and kind of I am facilitating that as well. The questions that mostly come with SSDMs and all is that there are a lot of people who are doing the course, completing it, but 10,000, 14,000, or even less than that of a first start wage, they would intend to come back. So what we are creating is a kind of an underemployment, in a sense that we are skilling up people, but the industries or the employers are not sensitive enough to go for a decent wage, and this is very strongly happening in the sectoral of the AC refrigeration or these repairing mechanisms, because the companies are mostly going into AMCs and sub-AMCs. So what happens into it? So the rural youth, we can offer these courses with access to the Mudra scheme, different schemes. We have a program at Bandhan also. We are working with Bengal Chambers of Commerce, directly supporting them with number of agri-techs and others, where we are actually counseling people to go for this. And 80% of our youth come from households where the income level is below 8,000. So that's where, and they're periphery areas as well. So they're coming from rural society, they're coming from urban areas, but of course the skill centers and yeah, the skill centers are mostly in the urban areas for infra and different kind of a reasons. So that's qualified 2. Qualified 3 is the skills certificates. Now, we had institutionalized a study way back in 2014. In 2018, there was another one done by KPMG, which shows that when people are going into the employment or the livelihood or the business, the actual skills required, even they have done through a certified course, are actually of very poor quality. So the national standards are not being maintained. There are a number of NGOs, private players who are offering short courses, paid, subsidized, supported by CS foundations, but they're not offering the certification from NSDC, and there is a parameter miss. It's not about that piece of paper called the certificate. It's more about the qualifying nature of the courses. So I think these 1 or 2, 3 things are extremely important. And another layer which I have found in my kind of work on labor and migration as well is the safety, particularly for younger women. So a lot of courses in warehouses are coming up. We know the logistics value chain are spreading across the country, but recently for last 1 year that I'm observing, there is a trend not to take women employees because the shifts are 24 hours because they're sending across different levels and layers. So there are certain industries which are maintaining these markers without ensuring the safety or the protocols that are required. So I think, kind of we need to work on that as well as a sensitization process to expand and the scope or the gamut of the employment or the skills absorption as well. So I think these are the 3 that randomly came into my mind.
Thank you, Shantamoy. And you did talk about not only giving opportunities for acquiring new skills, but also honing up the traditional skills. I think that was the first point that you made. And the other one was also to encourage people and provide them skilling so that they're also able to start self-employment ventures. And very important point which you talked about is about the quality of the skilling program. So it's just not about providing a skill training, but also ensuring that there is a proper certification so that there is a greater chance of absorption of such skilled workforce that we create. So thank you. We have less time, but I would like to encourage at least 1 or 2 questions from the house and would request the panelists to respond. So sir tells me that, we are getting the message to stop the session. Unless there is a very burning question in somebody's mind from the house. Anyone? I think people are tired as well. No questions? Well, there's one question. Yes, Indrajit.
Actually, as you said, we have not sufficient industry to accommodate our whole manpower resource here. But we are focusing on the skill set that is covered under RTD program, and we are focusing for last 1 year. And in that program, we are inviting industries directly to come into the skilling training of the people of the Bihar, and we have received good response from them. Like you said, ITES, we have a Sterlite company, and they have set up a training center in Patna, and they are again setting up few more centers at Darbhanga, Gaya, etc. And they have good response from our learners also. The placement is quite good. They are taking 80% in captive placement in Sterlite itself, and they are offering good salary, starting salary in 25,000 or so. So we are exploring the industry-led skilling program here. Also, we are focusing on the industry meet to assess the skilling requirement of that particular industry, and accordingly we are focusing on those skilling programs for our learners here. That may, I think, answer your question.
Yeah. Thank you so much, sir. So, in case there are no more, oh, there's one more. So, I don't think we'll have time to take any more. We can just have one more question from the house. Yes. Would you like to come a little forward and ask your question? Yes.
So my question is that with the current ecosystem of the projects being implemented to implement the agency for skill development and employment, do you think a transition to skill universities or providing a more robust curriculum where the youth being skilled, they are not only getting skill development but also a holistic approach to combat in that transition phase after employment, because there are people from rural areas and then working in the industries, there's a transition taking place for them to how they can adapt in that environment, and also coming up with a more robust curriculum like we have for our education, like in a university based approach.
Got it. So, any of the panelists can, so you want to take this up? Yeah.
Actually, Bihar Skill Development Mission is working on mega skill center set up in the Bihar, and we are in the advanced stage of finding a solution for that. Most probably, we will go in hub and spoke model, and very specific need of training, not only in the skills but entrepreneurship development, language skills. Even for foreign placement, we are focusing on that in the mega skill center model, our mega skill center model. So we are working on that, and in very short time we will able to show you some result in that area.
Thank you. Very quickly, yeah.
Just as an addition to what Sarah said, another factor is robustness is the quality framework. So it's not about the number of courses or the duration of the course that is required. For most poor people who are coming into it, whether a paid course or a subsidy course, they would like to see a jump start. So 1 month or 2 months of skilling can actually give you a job to start with at around 10, 15,000, even 20,000. Even in the BPO industry, Telecaller course is only 3 months. So it's not about an university structure or having a 5-year kind of a program. So it's not about that. So if you're looking at current map of Government of India, I mean the NSDC map in itself, we have around 4,500 different skills, job skills mentioned, and the courses would range from around 1 month to almost 2 years. So that distribution is also very required, and OTG somewhere is always there. Every industry specification, production model, sales model, everything is changing every 2 years to 3 years. So it's basically when you get into a job, go up, basically your skills and training would be imparted by the industry itself.
Thank you. I'm sure this answers your question. So, because of paucity of time, I'm sorry, we'll have to close this session. I have a lot of follow-up questions, and I'm sure the panelists also have a lot of thoughts to share. But nevertheless, this is just the beginning. We have just started, and there'll be more such opportunities for all of us to brainstorm and design a beautiful skilling and an urban ultra-poor livelihoods program. Thank you, each one of you. Hitendra, Rajiv sir, Sunil sir, Tini, and of course you, Mr. Chatterjee. Thanks a lot, and thanks to the patient audience. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We move on to the next. Thank you so much. We move on to the next session. May I call upon Prashant Krishna, who is the State Project Manager, Institution Building and Capacity Building in BRLPS Jivika. And he is also the nodal for the Satat Jeevikoparjan Yojana and also the Satat Jeevikoparjan Yojana Urban. He would share the summary of the discussions that we had throughout the day. I know it has been a long day, and I think a pointer from here or takeaways from here would be very, very important. Prashant Krishna. Can we have a round of applause for him?
Good afternoon to all. In fact, I have been given task to summarize the whole derivation the whole day, but for me it's very hard. So we have such an enriching experience today, but I tried to summarize everything in my own way. So moving ahead, so I will again go through the whole this project all about, the urban SGY project. So first and foremost, we're going to have all the nuances we have in SGY rural. So we're going to take those nuances as part of urban SGY urban. Second, it is again a time-bound project, and the focal point revolves around the food security of the household. Then social inclusion, which is very important, how to have an inclusive strategy with all the urban poor. Then how to have sustainable economic livelihoods. This could be a second pointer. We need to be with that project. Then how we work ahead. So we're going to have a PMU, PSC, PCI is there, going to steer that. And we're going to have a consortium of all the CSO partners. We're going to have more. And let's see how it goes about. Then targeting process. So we would be dealing with the slum dwellers first, the homeless population, then again physically challenged and bigger population. So that could be our target audience. And we also be working more with the interdepartmental convergence is much there. So it already visible here, but going to have more interdepartmental partnerships. Like to mention few, like we're going to have with UDSD, is worth mentioning that, then BSDM, then WCDC, ICDS, Saksham, and all the other departments. Okay, then some of the points I will go random because I will not go in sequence. It could be random, but some of the points which is worth mentioning the whole day we discuss. Few things on SJY rural. Some of the indicators like I will start from the output indicators, which could be a same indicator for urban also. So we're going to work more on how we increase the assetization, we need to work on that. Then how to increase the monthly income. Then how to have a proper savings and financial independence, that could be a one output indicator. Then how to have a safe and secure housing for them, and how to have a good linkage platforms. But how we can go about, we need to work on two different aspects. The one, how to have a very good coaching strategy is very important, which is very visible from the rural setup. Then again, how to have a good asset transfer. And who could be instrumental? Instrumental is MRP. Like MRP we have in rural areas. So can we have that kind of protocols feasible for urban also? So we could be working more on coaching per se. Moving ahead, some of the points like we also need to work on urban sanitation. Like in the first half of the deliberations, it has come very emphatically. We need to work on urban sanitation. We need to also work on the waste management systems, which is very, very important. Also, we need to take care of the health needs. It should be agenda 1 for us. Then again, on the technology part, because the MIS is of all the if all the arena, we need to work more on MIS. Digitization of everything. We take care of all the capacity building. It should be all in digital platforms. Second, we also need to work on forward and backward linkages, which is very pertinent if we need to work with the urban poor. Two, three things like the main target could be street vendors. So we need to work more on how to create more spaces for them, how to have some kind of forward and backward linkages for the street vendors. We also need to work on the market accessibility. One more thing, like in the beginning itself, it has come how to tap the aggregators. Because in this setup, how we can have informal microfinancing to the formal microfinancing, which means we need to replace these aggregators. So this could be strategy we can be again factoring in the development of our own strategy for urban SJY. Again, like Gautam suggested, we need to work on tools and methods for managing the money, which is very important. Again, how to have how to free women from drudgery. We need to give them some spaces, like mobile clinics are there. How to have those protocols where they can put their child safely somewhere and they can be free of that bondage of आपको space. Again, how to empower women economically with the voice. It has come. It has come from the many of the participants. This is the main focus would be how to empower them with their proper voice, which is visible in the rural areas, but how it can be more visible in the urban areas. Building trust in the community, and the last session, how to have skilling protocols with proper certification. So, in the nutshell, I will say these all feedback sessions are well taken. So, this could be going again in the building a robust strategy paper for us, and that could be helping us in implementing this more in proper way in the field. Thank you very much. And before that, I will invite Mahwara Chaudhary. She is Program Coordinator, Knowledge and Government Management for Way Ahead. Mahwaji.
Thank you, Prashant. I think you have summed it up all. Just 2 or 3 major pointers that I thought was important to take ahead from here is that even before we start really working in the urban area, it's very important to have a very strong team. If we don't have a very strong team, the deliberations or the system delivery would not be that smooth or would affect in some way or the other. Again, I take a clue from Hitendra, who says that we need to have really good HR to impact lives of the poor. And as our long-time CEO Arvind sir says, that poor should not be treated poorly. So here again, we also need to work on the core team, and we need to also facilitate various exposure visits or learning platforms to learn from whatever activities have been taken up for the urban poor programs in India, or even if we have to learn globally, we'll have to move and learn first on that. We again would like to take the clue from the SJY program, where we had a team of young professionals placed there, and most of the young professionals come from premier institutes, and we catch them young and we basically nurtured them. And I remember in the earlier days of SJY program, we did sociometric trainings with them, which is very, very important, you know, to get that empathy aspect, that sensitivity aspect to deliver work with the very poor communities. The next aspect is that it is very important to design the program well before we share the concept itself with the community. So if we have the program designed well, so sharing that with the community becomes easier, and then we have better responses from them. So even in Jeevika, we are very, very process oriented. So we would like to go for a robust process designing part next with the partners here We already have the expertise from BRAC, we have expertise from PCI and the partners, Mobile Crash and Access Development Services and many other partners who are already onboarded. We will sit together and will get into the program designing part of this pilot that we want to move in. Another big opportunity that we see here is the NULM program. We expertise in communitarization process. And again, the social mobilization and institutional building component of NULM has been entrusted to Jeevika. So we think that we will be in a position to again create that social capital which most of our urban poor lack through forming SHGs in the urban areas and also federating them into area level federations. Already NULM is doing that part, but taking the learnings from the Jeevika model, how can we again strengthen these institutions, because the community institutions are very, very important and critical in targeting the ultra poor families, in also making a dent in their lives through the entire process of graduation. So as we all have heard from the BRAC experience, Bangladesh experience, that urban poor is a little different than the rural poverty situations. So here we need to work on various aspects. Here we need to work on the soft skills, with the adolescent populations. We need to work on the health nutrition aspect. Maybe we need to also work on their education or skilling aspect as well. The aspirations would be very, very high when we are working with the ultra poor, and we also need to also understand the stress and the of course, the stress and the aspirations of the very poor population of the ultra poor families in the urban areas. So the program design would be the next way forward that we would really go for in the next 2 months' time, and then jot down the targeting criteria or defining the urban ultra poor families, and then we'll certainly focus on the skills. The third and the most important point that we thought is that we cannot do this program alone. We need to get into lot many convergences. As one of the panel also says, that we need to capitalize on the existing policies, existing programs and schemes. So we need to channelize that and also bring in a lot of awareness amongst our entire urban community. And I think as knowledge is power, we need to transfer this knowledge, information, and about the welfare schemes that already exist to the urban poor so that they can access and do it better. We need to really work with the bankers out here. If we can have a direct linkage with the credit, we can ease the credit access process for the urban poor. That would be another plus to this program. But if we don't have this formal access process, we need to also find digital alternatives and many other alternatives. So these are the few pointers that I have thought of that we need to go ahead with when we are designing the program for the ultra poor graduation program in Bihar. And one point that I would like to make here is yes, we need to, as Bangladesh also took the city, per capita income, maybe we also have to work on that. So the variable would be a little more varied, but we need to see whether the Patna per capita income matches with the Gaya per capita income or not, or do we have to also have a difference out there. So these are various learnings that we had throughout the day, and taking in all here, and we have recorded all the discussions out here. We have been live streaming the program, and we have around 100 people here, 100 resources here, but another more than 1,000 views in the live streaming program that we are running through our, again, partner, the Information and Personal Relations Department of Government of Bihar. So we have been live streaming the entire process. So from here, I would stop my visioning on the way forward aspects. And I have also been entrusted to extend the vote of thanks here. So I would, on behalf of Jeevika, would like to extend my sincere gratitude to all the participants of this workshop. This has been a really quite enriching and mind-boggling sessions that we had, and your contributions have been really, really very, very important for us to design the program ahead. My special acknowledgement to Sri Arunish Chawla sir, who with a very busy schedule could be here and guide us through. Shri Rahul Kumar sir, CEO Jeevika, I know we are very busy and he holds so many other portfolios as well. Vandana Prayasi ma'am, she also has been here and she also made a very valid contribution to this entire program. Shri Abhilasha Sharma, Municipal Commissioner of Gaya, Mr. Animesh Kumar Parashar, Municipal Commissioner Patna, Mr. Sunil Kumar Yadav, Mr. Rajiv Ranjan, sir. And we had all these officials from the government who came in, which itself says that the government is all very supportive to this program. So, of course, I would like to share my gratitude to the entire BRAC team for bringing us a new design program opportunity in Bihar. I also feel privileged to have been a part of this workshop. It's been quite an enriching session all the day too. I would like to thank all the CSO partners out here. I would not go into the names of all because I know I would miss one or the other. So I would thank everybody of you who have been here and contributed to the cause that we are all working together for. And I would also like to thank the organizers, the hotel staff here to also come in here and help us with all the logistics and other aspects. My special thanks to all my colleagues of Jeevika who has been here, who have been working all together to make this event a success. So on that note, I thank you all and wish to again collaborate and meet together and take this program to a successful end. Thank you so much.